Hello Virgo, I'm EllaAradia and welcome to your June 2026 Psychic Tarot reading. This reading is for my Virgo Earth signs, where we'll be exploring the overall energies and themes for the month ahead, as well as taking a deeper dive into how these might be playing out for you in your life. This is a general reading, so it's going to resonate a little bit differently for all of you. But what I do find is there's always a shared theme that runs through the collective of all of you Virgo signs. So take what feels aligned to you and just leave the rest. And before we jump in, a big thank you to all of you who are supporting my channel by liking and subscribing. So if you enjoy this reading and you haven't already done that, please do. It helps the channel out a lot. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, and then you can get notified when the next videos are up. So Virgo, let's jump in. So I always like to tune into the energies first, Virgo, before I start pulling any cards. I'm a psychic reader, so I like to see what the universe shows me. I'm seeing a new chapter for many of you, some kind of new beginning, you stepping into a new version of yourself. I'm feeling strong energies around, making different choices. Decisions, showing up differently, showing up in a way which is more aligned with, what you truly want and who you truly are. But I definitely feel like there's been some kind of process of some inner healing to kind of get to this point. And some of you are already kind of walking this path. But what I'm feeling here is, somebody coming back around from the past. And for many of you, this is going to be a past connection. And the energy I'm feeling around it is someone that you may have had a lot of stops and starts with, but it feels like a loop. Hitting challenges, hitting blocks in the connection and things breaking down, but then, getting back together again, but somehow, finding yourself always kind of back at the same point where, there's always been, a need to address some deeper issues, which I feel the person that you have been dealing with there, I feel wasn't really able to do that. And so you always ended up back at the same point again. And I'm just getting the sense of, somebody coming back around. Overall energies is the Three of Wands, which is a card of possibility, seeing what else is out there. And this is you walking this new path that I'm seeing here, showing up differently, making different choices, and, saying yes to more of what you do want rather than, what you don't really want. But it's also a card, I feel, that has involved you having to kind of move out of your comfort zone in some way. And that's why I feel like there's been some kind of, healing journey that has kind of gotten you to this point. And and it has involved, I feel, moving on from something or somebody where things were really not working out, and the person that you're dealing with, I feel, not able to really connect on a much deeper emotional level. And that's what you were needing in that. And of course, this can relate to a job, to career, something that you may have had a little bit of history with, wanting things to, shift to that next level. And it's almost like there was a kind of glimmer of hope that something might change, but then it didn't, and you ended up back in the same situation, where there is some kind of calling here, I feel, especially with this card as your overall energies, to take a different path, to see what else is out there. But of course, in order to do that, we have to have the courage to face any fears or insecurities, you know, anything that might be, you know, holding you back from, you know, not just walking a new path, but really embrace that version of yourself that is showing up now. So what lies in your recent past, the Nine of Swords, your current energies, the Hermit, your feelings towards your situation, the Knight of Wands. And, you know, I feel like this is the person that you have been dealing with. You know, this card is often known as the player of the tarot deck. You know, this is someone who I feel, you know, follows their passion, let's say, and, you know, they go after what they want, they follow their passion wherever that takes them, but not necessarily somebody who is able to connect at a much deeper emotional level. And what I'm feeling is you've been dealing with somebody who, you know, perhaps has a lot of barriers. There feels like there's a real kind of fear around, you know, opening up more deeply, opening up their heart. And as a result, I feel like there's been some behaviors which have, you know, sabotaged the connection here. Now, for some of you, it could even be betrayal. You know, this could be somebody that is, you know, going behind your back. There's, you know, a third party energy here somewhere. For others, I feel an energy of kind of toxicity as well. Someone who might be very social, you know, kind of gets a bit carried away with friends and things like that. And, you know, somehow that has been impacting your connection with them. Let's just look at your challenge. The challenge is the King of Cups. Your hidden influence is the Tower. When I feel into that card, I feel that's who you thought they were going to be for you. And that's why this energy is in the challenge here. Because the King of Cups is somebody who is able to really connect very deeply emotionally. They're able to hold, you know, that safe container, that safe space, to be able to, you know, really connect on that level. You know, this is a card of emotional stability, safety. You know, this is someone who can really kind of hold their balance, especially in a challenging time. And I feel like that's the potential that you saw in the person that you were dealing with here. And that's why I'm seeing that in the challenge position here. You know, all the cards have, you know, slightly different meanings, but when I'm doing readings, you know, I tend to get sort of different things that I feel off the cards, you know, depending obviously what's going on. And that's what it feels like to me. That, you know, that was who you thought they were going to be. But instead, you know, because they weren't quite ready, you've got someone who is, you know, a little bit of a player in some way. And whatever these behaviors are, however that's been manifesting, I feel has affected the connection because your emotional needs have not been met. And I almost get the energy of not being spent enough time with. You know, it's almost like this person has all the time in the world for friends, you know, other social things, but not for you. And it's almost like, you know, they reappear, you know, when they're wanting to connect, when they're wanting to see you. And it's very much all about them. And, you know, however that energy of fire and passion and desire kind of takes them. But the challenge for them also is opening up to their deeper emotions. So there's a challenge here on both sides. On your side, you're kind of hooked into the potential and the dream. And that's what's causing the anxiety here. You know, the Nine of Swords is all about worry, anxiety, running thoughts through your head, like really kind of ruminating over things. Because I do feel like something has, you know, if it hasn't broken down already, then I feel like it is in, you know, some kind of tower moment right now. But the tower always comes in when change is needed. And I think that's really important to remember. You know, it's a tough one sometimes, because everything that we thought it was going to be, everything that we thought something, you know, everything that we thought was solid starts to kind of crumble and fall apart. But what falls apart is anything that is built on illusion and false foundations, you know, because the tower, it clears the way for truth and for something, somebody that is more aligned for you. Because I do feel like there's some big lessons here around not settling for less, not settling for something that is more aligned with perhaps an old version of yourself. That old version of yourself, that person who stayed in something unhealthy in the hopes that things were going to change, that settled for less, that allowed it to, you know, perhaps affect your emotional contentment and happiness here. And I definitely feel, you know, like I was saying at the beginning, there's been some kind of healing process, healing journey where, you know, whatever has kind of broken down here has triggered this going inwards. So the Hermit is when we are going within to look for answers. And it's a well-traveled energy, the Hermit. It's somebody that has had a lot of life experiences. They've learned a lot. And there's been a lot of wisdom that has been gained. So there's definitely like a very deep energy of reflection going on for you at the moment. But the universe is bringing in a different path for you to walk, which is more in alignment with what you truly want and deserve, I feel. But the challenge here sometimes is, I feel, letting go of something or somebody that you might have invested a lot of time and energy into. This, you know, you may have put a lot of your heart into this or into this person. And sometimes it's harder to let go when we've invested so much. That can be the challenge sometimes. But either way, you know, there is some kind of, you know, very deep process of reflection going on for you currently, where I do feel you're being asked to have the courage to really see things as they are. You know, this, I feel like this is an ex returning that, you know, things are broken down with, they've come back around, they've come back into your life. But really, you know, will it be any different? And are you just in this loop with this person because you're more attached to what you thought it was going to be, who you thought they were going to be, more attached to the potential, the dream, rather than, you know, the reality of what is? Because, you know, deep down inside, you know, everybody wants love, but you know, sometimes for some people, there are definitely blocks and challenges which prevent them from, first of all, being able to open up to love. And even if they can, for some moments, they can't seem to sustain it. They can't maintain that connection because they've still got some work to do. They've still got some healing to do. So, I mean, I can also read that for, you know, the person that you're dealing with. You know, there's some work to do. There's some, you know, old patterns and wounds that they need to heal before they can actually get to this point of being somebody's King of Cups. And of course, that can be any gender, male or female. And so the universe has, brought in some kind of tower moment. This is often sudden change. Sometimes it can be a little bit chaotic. And how you approach the tower is very, very important as to how you come out the other side. Because always remember, when a tower comes in, there's a reason for that. And ultimately, it is always for your highest and best, because sometimes, a person is meant to be kind of moved out of your life so that you can walk a different path, which then allows somebody new to come in for you, and somebody who, is able to love you in the way that you love them. They're able to pour into you the way you can pour into them. And that's the invitation here, the Three of Wands, a new path, new possibilities, whether that's in career or love. Your advice from the universe is the Four of Cups. And the caution of this card is, yes, take some time out, allow yourself to heal and, understand things more clearly. Allow that wisdom of the hermit to, come into your awareness. But don't get stuck. Sometimes we can get a little bit stuck on the past, which for me represents those three cups there. And we can miss sometimes the opportunities that the universe is bringing in for us. So that's what this cup is that's being offered here. Some kind of new opportunity, a new cup of love, a new possibility, new career opportunity, creative opportunity for some of you. And, when we're fixated on something else, we sometimes don't see, these new possibilities, that the universe is, trying to bring in for you. What lies in the outcome is the Knight of Cups. And that is, some kind of new offer of love for you. And for some of you, a career-related opportunity, a creative opportunity. And the Knight of Cups is very much an energy of somebody who really comes towards you in a very clear way. Knights they're in pursuit of what they want. But this time, this is going to be somebody that is more connected to, their emotions, and is, closer, and hopefully will move into that King of Cups there. So heal the past, take some time out, but just make sure that you don't get stuck there, because the universe is, I really feel, trying to bring in, something new for you, something better. And it's about having the courage, I feel, to really honor, where you're at right now in yourself, and really stay true to, this new version of you that you have very much stepped into, in the process of stepping into, because there's more out there for you. So Virgo, I'm going to leave that there. If this reading resonated, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, no matter what comes through in a reading, moving forwards, always trust what feels right for you. So thanks so much for being here, Virgo, and I wish you a great month ahead.